He thought he was the king of the city. He thought he had everything controlled, the money, the power, and the perfect political marriage that would seal his empire. But life has a funny way of humbling even the devil. Damien Moretti was 5 minutes away from sealing his fate with a woman he didn't love. But at a red light in the pouring rain, his entire world shattered. It wasn't an assassin or a cop that broke him. It was a woman in a cheap raincoat struggling with a broken umbrella and 2 toddlers who looked exactly like him. This isn't just a story about love. It's a story about betrayal, secret babies, and a war that almost burned the city to the ground. You think you know how this ends? Let's get into it. The rain in Chicago didn't wash things clean. It just made the grime slicker. Inside the back of the armored Maybach, the world was silent. The leather smelled of sandalwood and money. Damien Moretti, the 32-year-old head of the Moretti crime syndicate, adjusted the cuffs of his bespoke suit. He looked out the tinted window, watching the blurred lights of the city he owned. Next to him sat Sophia Sterling. She was beautiful in the way a diamond is beautiful, cold, sharp, and expensive. She was the daughter of the Sterling banking family, the clean face to Damien's dirty money. Their engagement was the merger of the decade. "You're quiet tonight, Dom," Sophia said, not looking up from her phone. She was scrolling through the guest list for their engagement party set for this Saturday. "The florist needs to know if we're doing white lilies or orchids. I told them orchids. Lilies smell like a funeral. Orchids are fine." Damien grunted. He felt a headache building behind his eyes. He didn't hate Sophia. He respected her ruthlessness, but he felt nothing when he looked at her. "And Victor Cray?" Sophia asked, her voice dropping an octave. "Is he handled?" "Cray knows his place. If he steps out of line, he won't live long enough to regret it." "Good." She finally looked at him, her blue eyes icy. "We can't have a war on our wedding day. It's tacky." The driver, a massive man named Luca, slowed the car to a stop. "Traffic boss," Luca rumbled from the front. "Accident up ahead, near 5th and Grand. We're going to be stuck at this light for a minute." Damien sighed and leaned his head back. He closed his eyes. For 3 years, he had operated on autopilot. Since the night she left, the night he found the note, the empty closet, and the ring he'd bought her, sitting on the nightstand. Ivana. He pushed the name out of his mind. That was the rule. He didn't think about Ivana Reid. He didn't think about her laugh, or the way she used to sing while cooking pasta in his oversized t-shirt. She had betrayed him. She had run. She was the only thing in his life he hadn't been able to control. "Look at that," Sophia sneered, looking out the window. "People really shouldn't have children if they can't afford a car. It's irresponsible." Damien opened his eyes and lazily looked out the window to see what she was complaining about. They were stopped at a crosswalk. The rain was coming down in sheets now, a torrential downpour. On the corner, waiting for the signal, was a woman. She was struggling. She had a stroller that looked like it had seen better days, and she was holding the hand of another toddler who was refusing to walk. Her umbrella had snapped in the wind, leaving her soaked. Her hair was plastered to her face, hiding her features, but there was something about the set of her shoulders. Something about the desperate, fierce way she shielded the standing child from the spray of a passing bus. Damien's heart hammered a rhythm he hadn't felt in years. Thump, thump, thump. The light changed for the pedestrians. The woman rushed forward, pushing the stroller with one hand, dragging the toddler with the other. As she stepped into the beam of the Maybach's headlights, she looked up. Just for a second. She looked right at the tinted glass. She couldn't see him, but he saw her. Those eyes, honey brown, wide with exhaustion, but burning with that same stubborn fire. Damien stopped breathing. "Ivana," he whispered. The sound was ripped out of his throat. "What?" Sophia asked, frowning. Damien didn't answer. He was staring at the children. The boy walking beside her was wearing a yellow raincoat. He had dark, curly hair. The baby in the stroller was crying, kicking legs clad in tiny denim jeans. Damien's mind raced, doing the math that every man dreads and hopes for. She left 3 years ago. Those kids. The toddler looks about 2, maybe 2.5. The timeline fit. It fit perfectly. "Luca!" Damien barked. The authority in his voice was terrifying even to his own ears. "Unlock the doors." "Dom, what are you doing?" Sophia demanded, her voice shrill. "We're in the middle of traffic. It's pouring rain." "Unlock the doors, Luca." The lock clicked. Damien didn't wait. He shoved the door open, ignoring Sophia's shout of indignation. The noise of the city rushed in the honking horns, the rain, the sirens. Damien stepped out into the downpour. His Italian loafers splashed into a puddle. He didn't care. He scanned the crowd. She had made it across the street. She was hurrying down the block, turning the corner toward the subway entrance. "Ivana!" he roared. The thunder swallowed his voice. He started running. He was the most feared man in Chicago, a man who commanded armies, and here he was, sprinting through traffic like a madman chasing a ghost. He reached the corner just as she disappeared down the subway stairs. He vaulted the railing, ignoring the startled screams of commuters. He hit the landing and looked down. The platform was crowded. He saw the yellow raincoat. "Bella." She froze. He saw her spine stiffen. She was 20 feet away near the turnstiles. She didn't turn around. She grabbed the boy's hand tighter, scooped him up onto her hip, and shoved the stroller through the gate with panicked strength. She knew. She knew he was there. Damien lunged forward, but the crowd surged as a train arrived. A wall of wet commuters blocked his path. By the time he shoved a businessman out of the way and reached the turnstile, the doors of the train were closing. He slapped his hands against the dirty glass of the subway car. Inside, sitting on a plastic bench, Ivana looked up. She was shivering. She was holding the 2 boys close to her chest, her face pale as a sheet. She looked at him. Her eyes weren't filled with love. They were filled with terror. And then he saw the boy, the one in the yellow coat, look at him too. The kid had Damien's nose. He had Damien's scowl. The train jerked and pulled away, disappearing into the dark tunnel. Damien Moretti stood alone on the platform, water dripping from his expensive suit, his chest heaving. "Boss?" Luca's voice came from behind him. Luca had followed him down, gun hand hovering near his jacket. "You okay? Was that who I think it was?" Damien stared into the darkness where the train had vanished. A cold, deadly calm settled over him. The shock was gone, replaced by a fury that burned hotter than the sun. "Get the car," Damien said, his voice low and dangerous. "And call the private investigator. I want to know where that train stops. I want to know where she lives. I want to know what she had for breakfast." "Dom, the engagement party meeting." "Cancel it," Damien snarled, turning to face his right-hand man. "Cancel everything. Nobody keeps my children from me. Nobody." Sophia Sterling was not a woman who handled humiliation well. When Damien returned to the car, soaking wet and radiating a murderous aura, she didn't scream. She went silent. That was worse. Drive her home. Luca, Damien ordered, not even looking at her. I'm taking the other car. You're leaving me? Sophia asked, her voice tight. In the middle of the street, because you saw some whore from your past. Damien turned on her slowly. The look in his eyes made her flinch. Careful, Sophia. You're talking about the mother of my children. Sophia's mouth fell open. Children. You're insane. She left you Damien. She cheated on you. Remember the photos, the texts. I remember what I was shown, Damien said cryptically. He slammed the door, leaving her alone in the Maybach. 3 days later. The investigator, a nervous man named Mr. Henderson, sat in Damien's office. He was sweating despite the air conditioning. Damien sat behind his mahogany desk, a glass of whiskey untouched in his hand. Talk, Damien said. Henderson cleared his throat. It wasn't easy, Mr. Moretti. She's very good at staying off the grid. No credit cards, no lease in her name. She works for cash under the table. Where? A bakery in the Lower West Side, Crust and Crumb. She goes by the name Anna. And the kids? Damien leaned forward. Henderson slid a manila envelope across the desk. Damien opened it. Photos. High-resolution photos taken from a distance. Ivana pushing the boys on a swing set in a rundown park. Ivana feeding them ice cream. And a close-up of the twins, Noah and Ethan. They were carbon copies of Damien, but with Ivana's softness around the eyes. They turn 3 next month, Henderson said. The birth certificates list the father as unknown. Damien's hand crushed the photo. Unknown. She's living in a studio apartment above the bakery, Henderson continued. It's not a good area, boss. There was a shooting on her block 2 weeks ago. Damien stood up so abruptly, his chair fell over. She has my sons in a war zone. She doesn't have a choice, sir. She's broke. Damien buttoned his jacket. Not anymore. The bakery smelled of yeast and cinnamon. It was a small, cramped place with peeling paint. Damien filled the doorway, his presence sucking the air out of the room. It was late afternoon. The shop was empty except for a young girl at the counter and a woman wiping tables in the back. Damien walked past the counter. The girl squeaked, "Sir, you can't go back there." He ignored her. He walked right up to the woman in the apron. Ivana froze. She was holding a tray of dirty dishes. She looked thinner than he remembered, tired. There were dark circles under her eyes, and her hands were red from scrubbing. She turned slowly. When she saw him, the tray slipped from her fingers. Crash! Ceramic shattered on the linoleum floor. "Hello, Bella," Damien said softly. Ivana backed up until she hit the wall. Her chest was heaving. Get out, or I'm screaming." "Scream all you want. The police in this district are on my payroll. The landlord owns me money. No one is coming to help you." He stepped over the broken dishes, closing the distance. "Why did you run?" "You know why," she hissed, tears springing to her eyes. "Don't pretend you didn't throw me out. Don't pretend you didn't send that monster to threaten me." Damien frowned. "What are you talking about? I never sent anyone. You left a note. You said you didn't love me anymore. You said I was too dangerous." Ivana let out a bitter, jagged laugh. "Is that what they told you I wrote that note with a gun to my head?" "Damien, your father's men told me if I didn't leave, they would kill me, and they would kill the baby I was carrying." Damien felt the world tilt. His father, old Sal Moretti. The man had been dead for a year, but his shadow still lingered. Sal had always hated Ivana. He thought she was too soft, too poor a liability. "My father is dead," Damien said, his voice rough. "Good," Ivana spat. "I hope he burned." "The twins," Damien said, changing the subject. "Noah and Ethan. They're mine." "No." Ivana lied. She was a terrible liar. She tried to lift her chin defiantly. "They're not. They're my boyfriends. Mark. He's in the Navy." Damien stepped closer, invading her space. He could smell her scent, vanilla and rain under the bakery smells. It intoxicated him. He reached out and trapped her against the wall, his hands on either side of her head. "Stop lying to me, Bella. I saw them. I saw their eyes. I saw my face on them." He leaned down, his lips inches from her ear. "I'm going to get a DNA test, and when it comes back positive, do you know what happens? You'll take them," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You'll take them into your world of blood and bullets. I won't let you." "I don't want to take them from you," Damien said, surprising himself. "I want to take them with you." Ivana looked at him confused. "What?" "Pack your bags, Bella. You and the boys are coming to the estate." "I'm not going anywhere with you. You're engaged. I saw the magazines. Sophia Sterling, the Ice Queen." "That's business," Damien dismissed. "And us. What are we, a hobby?" Ivana pushed against his chest, but he was like a brick wall. Suddenly a small voice piped up from the doorway, leading to the upstairs apartment. "Mama!" Damien and Ivana both froze. Standing in the doorway was one of the twins. He was holding a stuffed bear that was missing an ear. He rubbed his eyes sleepily. "Mama, who is the big man?" Damien turned to look at his son. Up close, the resemblance was undeniable. The boy had the Moretti chin, the Moretti dark curls. Damien dropped to one knee, ignoring the grime on the bakery floor. He looked at the boy with a wonder he had never felt before. "Hey there," Damien said, his voice gentle. I'm a friend of your mama's." The boy looked at Damien suspiciously, then looked at Ivana. "Is he a bad man, Mama?" Ivana looked at Damien. She saw the raw emotion in his eyes. She saw the way his hand shook slightly as he reached out toward the boy, but stopped short, afraid to touch him. She took a deep breath. "No, Noah," she said, her voice breaking. "He's not a bad man. He's just a man." Damien looked up at her, grateful for that small mercy. "We're leaving," Damien said, standing up. "Now, I have security outside. I'm not asking Bella. This place isn't safe. And now that I've found you, then my enemies will find you too. If Cray finds out I have sons, he will come for them. Tonight." Ivana's face went pale. She knew who Victor Cray was. Everyone in Chicago did. "I need 10 minutes, she whispered, defeated. "You have 5, Damien said. He pulled out his phone. "Luca, bring the car around. We have cargo. Precious cargo." As Ivana ran upstairs to pack, Damien stood guard at the bottom of the stairs. He felt a vibration in his pocket. A text from Sophia. Sophia. "My father wants to have dinner. He's asking about the delay in the wedding date. Don't embarrass me, Damien." Damien looked at the text, then at the little boy, Noah, who was still clutching his bear and staring at him. Damien deleted the text. He wasn't just a boss anymore. He was a father. And anyone, Sophia her father, or Victor Cray, who stood between him and his family, was going to die. The Moretti estate was less a home and more a fortress disguised as a museum. Iron gates twice the height of a man swung open, revealing a winding driveway lined with ancient oak trees. In the back of the SUV, Noah and Ethan were silent, their eyes wide with fear and wonder. They were clutching Ivana's hands, so tightly her knuckles were white. "It's okay," Ivana whispered, though her own heart was hammering against her ribs. "It's just a big house." Damien sat in the front seat, checking the perimeter cameras on his tablet. He hadn't spoken since they left the bakery. He was in tactical mode, assessing threats, reorganizing security details, moving pieces on a chessboard only he could see. The car stopped in front of the massive stone steps. A team of staff was already waiting. Maids in uniforms, guards in dark suits. "Welcome home, sir," the head butler. A stiff man named Arthur said as he opened the door. Damien stepped out and turned to help Ivana. He extended a hand. She stared at it for a second, the hand that had caressed her cheek 1,000 times the hand that had pulled a trigger to protect his empire, and then she ignored it. She climbed out on her own, lifting the boys down one by one. "Get them settled in the East Wing," Damien ordered Arthur. "I want the nursery prepped. Whatever they need, clothes, toys, food, get it, tonight." "Damien," Ivana cut in, her voice sharp. "They are not puppies. You don't just prep a room. They are scared. They are sleeping with me." Damien turned to her. The staff held their breath. No one spoke to the boss like that. "The East Wing has a master suite," Damien said calmly. "You'll stay there. The boys have a connecting room. It's safe. The windows are bulletproof." "Bulletproof?" Ivana repeated, a dry sob escaping her throat. "Great. A bulletproof childhood." As they walked inside, the contrast was painful. Ivana in her worn jeans and flour-stained sneakers, holding the hands of 2 toddlers in thrift store clothes, walking across marble floors that cost more than her entire life's earnings. Noah tripped on a Persian rug. He didn't cry, but he whimpered. Damien instinctively reached out to steady him. Noah flinched, hiding behind Ivana's leg. Damien's hand froze in midair. The rejection stung worse than a knife wound. "He doesn't know you," Ivana said quietly, pulling Noah close. "You're a stranger to them, Damien. You can't just buy your way into being a father." "I have lost 3 years," Damien said, his voice low and intense. "I'm not wasting another second." Just then the heavy front doors banged open. The sound of high heels clicking furiously on the marble echoed through the grand foyer. "Damien?" Ivana stiffened. She knew that voice. She had seen that voice giving interviews on the news about charity galas and banking mergers. Sophia Sterling marched into the hallway. She was wearing a white dress that looked pristine, her blonde hair pulled back in a severe, perfect bun. She stopped dead when she saw the scene. Damien, the staff, the dirty toddlers, and the woman in the cheap raincoat. Sophia's eyes scanned Ivana from head to toe. She didn't look jealous. She looked disgusted, as if someone had tracked mud onto her carpet. Sophia said, her voice dripping with ice. "This is the emergency you missed dinner with my father for. Charity work." "Sophia, go home," Damien warned, stepping between her and Ivana. "I am home," Sophia snapped. "Or I will be in 2 months when we're married. Who is this Damien? And why are there children in my foyer?" "These are my sons," Damien stated. The words hung heavy in the air. Sophia blinked. Her composure cracked for a fraction of a second. "Sons? You have got to be kidding me. You have... bastards." She looked at Ivana with a sneer. "And I assume this is the help." "Watch your mouth," Damien growled. This is Ivana, the mother of my children, and they are living here now." Sophia let out a short, incredulous laugh. "Living here? With us? Damien, we have an image to maintain. The senator is coming for dinner next week. You can't have your past mistakes running around in diapers." Ivana stepped out from behind Damien. She was small compared to Sophia's statuesque height, but she was furious. "My children are not mistakes," Ivana said, her voice trembling with rage. "And don't worry, princess. We don't want to be here any more than you want us here. As soon as I know it's safe, we're gone." Sophia took a step closer to Ivana. "Safe? You think you're safe here? You have no idea what world you've walked into, honey. You're just a pawn, and pawns get sacrificed." "That's enough," Damien roared. His voice shook the crystal chandelier above them. "Sophia, get out! Now! Before I forget that our fathers were friends." Sophia stared at him. She saw the look in his eyes, a look she had never seen directed at her. It was possessiveness. It was obsession. He was looking at this baker girl like she was the only woman on earth. Sophia smoothed her dress. Her face went blank, masking the venom underneath. "Fine," she said coolly. "I'll leave, but my father will hear about this. You're breaking the contract, Damien, and the Sterlings always collect their debts." She turned and walked out, not looking back. But as she passed the mirror in the hallway, Ivana saw Sophia's reflection. Her eyes weren't defeated. They were calculating. "She's going to be a problem," Ivana whispered as the door slammed. "She's a business partner." Damien dismissed, turning back to the twins. "She's irrelevant." "No woman is irrelevant when she's scorned, Damien," Ivana said, picking up Ethan, who had started to cry. "You of all people should know that." Damien looked at her, his eyes darkening. "I never scorned you, Bella. I mourned you." He reached out, and this time he didn't ask. He touched her face, his thumb brushing away a smudge of flour on her cheek. The electricity between them was still there, crackling and dangerous. "Welcome home," he murmured. Ivana pulled away, her heart racing. "Show me the room. The boys need to sleep." The next morning, the DNA result sat on Damien's desk. 99.99% match. Damien stared at the paper. He didn't need the science to tell him. He had spent the morning watching the security feed of the East Wing garden. He watched Noah and Ethan chasing a butterfly. The way Noah furrowed his brow when he concentrated, it was exactly like Damien. He poured himself a drink, even though it was only 10:10 a.m. He had 2 sons. He had a family. And he had a contract with the Sterlings that, if broken, would cost him half his territory and likely start a war with the political elite of Chicago. The intercom buzzed. "Boss, Mr. Henderson is here." "Send him in." Henderson looked even more nervous than before. He was holding a file. "You asked me to look into the threat Miss Reed received 3 years ago," Henderson said, wiping sweat from his forehead. "The one she claimed came from your father. And I checked Sal Moretti's old logs, his phone records, his orders. Boss, Sal didn't order the hit." Damien frowned. "My father was a ruthless man. He hated Ivana. It sounds exactly like him. He hated her, yes, but Sal was old school. If he wanted her gone, he wouldn't have threatened her. He would have just done it. And he wouldn't have left a witness." Henderson opened the file. "I tracked the phone number that sent the text messages to Ivana 3 years ago. It was a burner phone bought at a bodega in South Side. Dead end. I thought so. But then I cross-referenced the location of the phone when the messages were sent. The GPS pinged from a specific address in the Gold Coast. Damien went still. Which address? The Sterling penthouse. The glass in Damien's hand cracked. It wasn't his father. It was Sophia. Sophia had been barely an acquaintance back then. But she had always wanted the Moretti alliance. She must have seen Ivana as an obstacle to her future power. She had orchestrated the threats, used Sal's reputation to scare Ivana away, and cleared the path for her own engagement. She stole 3 years from me, Damien whispered. The rage was cold liquid nitrogen in his veins. She stole my children's infancy. Boss, what do you want to do? Henderson asked, stepping back. Keep digging on the Sterlings, Damien ordered. I want to know every dirty secret they have. If I'm going to break this engagement, I need leverage to stop them from coming after us. Yes, sir. Meanwhile, in the East Wing, Ivana was trying to keep the twins occupied. The nursery was filled with ridiculous toys Damien had ordered overnight, electric cars, giant plush tigers, a train set big enough to ride on. But the boys were bored. They wanted to go outside, but the guards said the perimeter was on lockdown. Mama, I want to go to the park, Ethan whined. I know, baby. We can't right now. The door opened, and Damien walked in. He had shed his suit jacket and rolled up his sleeves. He looked less like a mob boss and more like a man. A very dangerous, very handsome man. They look bored, Damien said, leaning against the doorframe. They're used to freedom, Ivana said, not looking at him. Not being locked in a gilded cage. It's not a cage, it's a fortress. There's a difference. Damien walked over to the train set. He picked up a locomotive. Noah, do you like trains? Noah looked at him, then at the train. The temptation was too great. He nodded slowly. This is a steam engine, Damien said, sitting down on the floor. His expensive trousers didn't matter. My grandfather used to work on these. Before. He set the train on the tracks. Noah crept closer. Then Ethan. Within 5 minutes, the three of them were building a track. Ivana watched from the armchair. Her heart ached. This was what she had dreamed of when she was pregnant. A family. But she knew the truth. Damien was a criminal. His hands were stained with blood. Damien, she said softly. He looked up. The boys were busy crashing the trains together. We need to talk about what happens next. Damien stood up and walked over to her. He kept his voice low so the kids wouldn't hear. What happens next is simple. You stay here. We be a family. It's not simple, she hissed. You're engaged to Sophia. You have enemies who want to kill you. Victor Cray is out there. I can't raise my sons in a house where they need bulletproof glass. I will protect you, Damien vowed. I will burn the whole city down before I let anyone touch a hair on their heads. That's exactly what I'm afraid of, Ivana said, tears filling her eyes. I don't want them to be like you, Damien. I don't want them to be killers. Damien's face fell. Is that what you think I am? Just a killer, aren't you? Before he could answer, a loud alarm blared through the house. Weep, weep, weep. The lights flickered red. Damien's demeanor changed instantly. The father was gone. The boss was back. He pulled a gun from the holster at the small of his back. Ivana gasped instinctively, throwing her body over the twins on the floor. Stay down, Damien commanded. He tapped his earpiece. Luca, report. Breach. Luca's voice crackled, sounding panicked. Westgate, we have an SUV ramming the perimeter. Boss, it's not Cray. Who is it? It's the police. a SWAT team, and Child Protective Services. Damien cursed. CPS, Ivana cried, looking up. Why are they here? Sophia, Damien growled. She didn't send hitmen. She sent the law. The front doors were battered down. The sound of boots thundering into the hallway echoed. Damien Moretti, a voice amplified by a megaphone, boomed. We have a warrant for the removal of minors, Noah and Ethan Reed, on the grounds of endangerment and kidnapping. Ivana scrambled to her feet, grabbing the boys. Kidnapping, I'm their mother. Sophia must have tipped them off, Damien said, his mind racing. She told them I'm holding you against your will. If they find you here with armed guards. It looks bad, Bella. What do we do? She was terrified. Damien looked at her. He had a choice. He could fight the cops, which would end in a shootout and trauma for the kids, or he could play the game. Let them in, Damien said into his earpiece. Stand down. Nobody fires a shot. Damien, Ivana grabbed his arm. They're going to take them. No, Damien said, holstering his gun and smoothing his hair. They're going to try. But Sophia made a mistake. She thinks I'm just a thug. He turned to Ivana, grabbing her shoulders. Trust me. Do not say a word. Let me handle the lawyers. Just hold the boys. The doors to the nursery burst open. 6 SWAT officers with rifles entered, followed by a stern-looking woman in a suit holding a clipboard. Step away from the children, Mr. Moretti, the woman barked. Damien raised his hands calmly. Officer, this is a misunderstanding. These are my guests. We have a report that an unidentified woman and 2 children were abducted from a bakery yesterday, the woman said. Ivana Reed. I wasn't abducted. Ivana said, her voice shaking, but clear. I came willingly. The woman looked skeptical. She looked at the armed guards in the hallway. Ma'am, you are in the home of a known crime lord. We have an emergency court order to place the children in protective custody until a hearing can be established. Over my dead body, Damien snarled, taking a step forward. The SWAT officers raised their rifles. Don't! Ivana screamed. She looked at Damien. She saw the violence rising in him. If he fought, he would go to jail or die, and she would lose him again. Damien, stop, she begged. She turned to the social worker. I will go with you, but you are not separating me from my children. We can arrange a shelter for you and the children, the woman said. Fine, Ivana said. She looked at Damien. I have to go. I can't let them take the boys away from me. I'll get you out. Damien promised, his eyes burning into hers. Give me 1 hour. I'll have the best lawyers in the city. I'll buy the damn shelter if I have to. The police escorted Ivana and the crying twins out of the room. Damien stood there powerless for the first time in his life. He watched his family being dragged away by the good guys. As the convoy left, Damien's phone buzzed. It was a text from Sophia. Sophia. Being a father is hard, isn't it? Don't worry, Dom. I'll drop the charges once you set a date for our wedding, and once Ivana leaves town. Permanently. Damien stared at the phone. He didn't break it this time. He just smiled. It was a terrifying, shark-like smile. Luca, he said quietly to the empty room. Get the car. We're not going to the lawyers. Where are we going, boss? Luca asked, appearing at the door. We're going to pay a visit to Victor Cray. Cray. But he's the enemy. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, Damien said. Sophia wants to play dirty. She wants to use the law. Fine. I'm going to use the streets. I'm going to burn her world down, and I'm going to need a lot of gasoline. The meatpacking district was neutral ground, mostly because the smell of copper and blood masked the scent of treachery. Damien walked into the refrigerated warehouse of Cray's Fine Meats. It was freezing. Rows of cow carcasses hung from hooks on a conveyor belt, sliding by slowly. At the end of the aisle, sitting on a folding chair and sharpening a butcher knife, was Victor Cray. He was a mountain of a man, scarred and bald, wearing a blood-spattered apron over a silk shirt. "Moretti," Cray grunted, not looking up. "You've got guts coming here without an army. Or maybe you just have a death wish." "I have a proposition," Damien said, his breath misting in the cold air. Cray laughed, a dry, hacking sound. "A proposition you've been trying to kill me for 5 years. I've been trying to kill you for 6. What could you possibly offer me?" "The docks," Damien said. Cray stopped sharpening the knife. The silence in the warehouse was deafening, save for the hum of the cooling fans. He looked up, his eyes narrowing. "The docks are the crown jewel of your Operation Dom. Imports, exports, millions a month. You're giving them to me. I'm giving you full control, effective immediately." Cray stood up, wiping the knife on his apron. "Why is the FBI on your tail? Is the product tainted?" "No," Damien said, stepping closer. "Because I need something you have. Information." "What kind of information is worth 50 million a year?" "Dirt on the Sterling family." Cray raised an eyebrow. "Your in-laws?" "The bankers I thought you were marrying the Ice Queen next month." "The wedding is still on," Damien said, his jaw tightening. "But the marriage isn't happening. Sophia Sterling crossed a line. She went after my family. She took my children." Cray's expression shifted. Even in the underworld, there were rules. You didn't touch the kids. Cray had 3 daughters of his own. "She took your kids," Cray spat on the floor. "That's low, even for a civilian. I need to destroy her," Damien said, his voice void of emotion. "Not just kill her. If I kill her, she becomes a martyr. The police come down on me. I lose my sons forever. I need to destroy her name. I need to strip her of her power, her money, and her leverage. I know your people have been laundering money through Sterling Bank for years. You have the ledgers." Cray nodded slowly. "I do. The Sterlings think they're clean, but they wash dirtier money than anyone. If those ledgers go public, the senator goes to prison, the bank collapses, and Sophia is left with nothing." "Give me the ledgers," Damien said, "and the docks are yours." Cray studied Damien's face. He saw the desperation and the resolve. He saw a man who had stopped caring about being a king and only cared about being a father. Cray extended a massive, calloused hand. "You're a fool, Moretti. Giving up an empire for a woman." Damien gripped Cray's hand. "Not for a woman, for a life." 3 days later, the Safe Haven shelter. Ivana sat on a cot in a small, sterile room. It smelled of bleach. The windows were barred. It was less a shelter and more a minimum security prison for mothers the state deemed at risk. Noah and Ethan were asleep, curled up together at the foot of the bed. They had cried themselves to sleep, asking for the big house and the train set. Ivana felt like a failure. She had tried to protect them, and instead she had dragged them into a nightmare. The door buzzed open. Ivana jumped up. "Is it my lawyer? I've been asking for a phone call for 2 days." It wasn't a lawyer. It was Sophia Sterling. She walked in wearing a trench coat and sunglasses, looking like she had taken a wrong turn on her way to Milan. 2 private security guards stood outside the door. "You look terrible, honey," Sophia said, wrinkling her nose. "What do you want?" Ivana demanded, standing between Sophia and the sleeping boys. "I came to give you the good news," Sophia said, pulling a document from her bag. "Damien and I have reconciled. He sees clearly now. He knows that a life with a baker is beneath him." "Liar," Ivana said. But her heart stuttered. "Oh, really? Then why did he agree to move the wedding up?" Sophia smiled cruelly. "This Saturday, St. Patrick's Cathedral. It's going to be televised. He's marrying me, Ivana, and as a wedding gift, he's signing over his parental rights." She waved the paper. "He agrees that the boys are better off in the system. Or maybe adopted by a nice family in Switzerland, far away from his chaotic life." "He would never do that," Ivana whispered. "He loves them." "He loves power," Sophia corrected, "and I am power. He chose the empire, Ivana. Men always do." Sophia tossed the paper onto the cot. "Sign this. It's a voluntary surrender of custody. If you sign it, I'll give you a check for $500,000. You can start over. Somewhere else. And if I don't, then I'll make sure you stay in the system forever. Unfit mother. Unstable. I have judges in my pocket who will make sure you never see those boys again." Sophia turned and walked out. "Think about it. You have until the wedding. Saturday noon." The door slammed shut. Ivana looked at the paper. Tears streamed down her face. She looked at Noah and Ethan. She couldn't fight the Sterlings. She was nobody. But then she remembered Damien's eyes in the subway, the way he had run into traffic, the way he had looked at Noah. "He loves power," Sophia had said. "No," Ivana thought, clutching her chest. "He ran into the rain for us. That wasn't power. That was panic." She flipped the paper over. On the back, scrawled in faint pencil, likely written by a bribed guard or a cleaner, was a message. "Sat. Noon. Don't sign. Be ready. D." Ivana let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. He hadn't abandoned her. He was planning something. Saturday. The wedding of the century. St. Patrick's Cathedral was packed. The pews were filled with the elite of Chicago senators, judges, celebrities, and the heads of the 5 families. It was a sea of black tuxedos and designer gowns. The altar was draped in white orchids, Sophia's favorite. Damien stood at the altar. He looked devastatingly handsome in a black tuxedo, but his face was stone. He looked like a man marching to the gallows. Beside him, Luca stood as his best man, looking equally tense. His hand kept drifting to the inside of his jacket. "Relax," Damien murmured, barely moving his lips. "Wait for the signal." "We're cutting it close, boss," Luca whispered. "Cray's men are in position outside, but the Sterlings have added extra security. If this goes south, it's a massacre." "It won't go south. It'll go viral." The organ music swelled. The heavy oak doors opened. Sophia Sterling entered. She was breathtaking. Her dress was a custom Vera Wang, costing more than Ivana's bakery would earn in 10 years. A diamond tiara rested on her head. She walked down the aisle, smiling at the cameras, waving to her father, Senator Sterling, who beamed from the front row. She reached the altar and took her place beside Damien. "You look tense, darling," she whispered, her eyes shining with triumph. "Don't worry. Ivana signed the papers. She's on a bus to nowhere." Damien looked at her. "You really think you won, don't you? I always win." The priest cleared his throat. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today." The ceremony dragged on. Damien went through the motions. He felt sick. Every second that passed was a second his sons were in that cell. "Do you, Sophia Sterling, take this man?" "I do," she said loudly, squeezing Damien's hand. "And do you, Damien Moretti?" Damien paused. The silence stretched. The crowd murmured. Sophia's smile faltered. She dug her nails into his palm. "Say it," she hissed. Damien looked out at the crowd. He looked at the camera crews broadcasting live to the local news. "Before I say I do," Damien said, his voice amplified by the microphone, "I have a vow to make." He turned to the congregation. "I vow to protect this city from criminals," Damien said. "Real criminals. Not the ones who sell vices, but the ones who sell souls." "Damien, what are you doing?" Senator Sterling stood up in the front row. "Cut the mic! Keep it on!" Damien roared. He pulled a remote from his pocket and pressed a button. Behind the altar, a massive projection screen that was meant to show a montage of the couple's photos suddenly flickered. Static. Then a video began to play. It was grainy footage from a security camera. It showed Sophia Sterling in her penthouse, pacing while on the phone. The timestamp was 3 years ago. Voice of Sophia on screen. "I don't care how you do it. Threaten her. Tell her Sal Moretti will kill the baby. Just get that Baker bitch out of the city before Damien finds out she's pregnant." The crowd gasped. Sophia went pale. The video cut to a spreadsheet. It was complex, but the highlighted columns were clear. Cartel transfers. Bribes. Judge Halloway. Senator Sterling Campaign Fund. Source Cray Syndicate. "Turn it off!" Sophia screamed, lunging for Damien. Damien caught her wrist effortlessly. "There's more." The screen changed again. This time it was a live feed. It showed the outside of the Safe Haven shelter. A black van rammed through the gates. Masked men jumped out, but they weren't attacking. They were disarming the guards. The camera zoomed in as a massive man, Victor Cray, kicked open the door to the facility. Moments later, he emerged carrying 2 toddlers, with Ivana running beside him. Cray looked right into the security camera he knew was there and gave a mock salute. Damien looked back at Sophia. "You didn't just steal my money, Sophia. You stole my time. And now you're going to pay." "Arrest him!" Senator Sterling shouted, pointing at Damien. "He's a mobster. This is slander." "Actually," a voice boomed from the back of the cathedral. The doors swung open again. It wasn't Ivana. It was the FBI. Special Agent Miller walked down the aisle flanked by 24 agents in tactical gear. But they weren't aiming at Damien. They were aiming at the front row. "Senator Sterling, Sophia Sterling," Miller announced. "We received a package of digital ledgers this morning, verifying massive money laundering, racketeering, and kidnapping. You are under arrest." Sophia stumbled back, her dress tangling around her legs. "No. No, Damien, you did this. You ratted. You broke the code." "I rewrote the code," Damien said coldly. "Omerta doesn't protect child kidnappers." As the agents swarmed the altar, Sophia screamed a primal, ugly sound. Her father was being cuffed on the floor. Damien stepped off the altar. He ripped off his bow tie and threw it on the ground. He didn't look back as Sophia was dragged away, her perfect wedding dress ruined. He walked down the aisle alone. The crowd parted for him like the Red Sea. They were terrified. They had just watched a king execute a queen without firing a single shot. He walked out of the cathedral and into the bright sunlight. A black SUV pulled up to the curb. The window rolled down. Ivana was there. She looked exhausted, but she was smiling. Noah and Ethan were in the back seat, holding juice boxes Cray had apparently bought them. "Get in," Ivana said. Damien opened the door. He really looked at her for the first time in 3 years, without a secret between them. "Is it over?" she asked. "The Sterlings are finished," Damien said, sliding into the car. "The engagement is off." "Good," Ivana said, grabbing his tie and pulling him into a fierce kiss. "Because I hate orchids." "Boss," Luca said from the driver's seat. "Where to?" Damien looked at his sons. Noah waved his juice box. "Train?" Noah asked hopefully. Damien laughed. It was a genuine light sound that felt foreign in his chest. "Yeah, kid, we're going home to play with trains." 6 months had passed since the Red Wedding. The fall of the House of Sterling was swift and absolute. With the evidence Damien provided, the FBI dismantled their banking empire piece by piece. Senator Sterling was facing 20 years for racketeering. Sophia Sterling, the woman who once sneered at the world from a penthouse, was now sitting in a county jail cell awaiting trial. Her assets frozen and her reputation incinerated. But Damien Moretti didn't care about the news. He had stopped reading the papers the day he walked out of the cathedral. The Moretti estate was unrecognizable. The iron gates were still there, but the atmosphere inside had shifted. The pristine, museum-quality marble floors were now covered in foam puzzle mats. The silence that used to suffocate the hallways had been replaced by the sound of cartoons blasting from the living room and the thundering footsteps of 2 3-year-olds. Damien sat in his home office, looking at a blueprint. Across from him sat Victor Cray, sipping an espresso with his pinky extended mockingly. "You're turning the West Wing into a what?" Cray asked, arching a scarred eyebrow. "A bakery," Damien replied, not looking up. "Industrial grade. Ivana wants to expand Crust and Crumb, but I'm not letting her commute to the south side, so we're bringing the business here." Cray chuckled. "You've gone soft, Moretti. I'm running the docks, moving tons of product, and you're looking at pastry ovens." "I'm not soft, Victor. I'm retired. Mostly." Damien leaned back. "You handle the streets. I handle the investments. It's a clean partnership." "It works," Cray admitted, standing up. "By the way, Sophia sent a letter from prison trying to cut a deal. She offered dirt on me." Damien's eyes went cold. "And I burned it." Cray shrugged. "I don't make deals with rats, besides the twins like me. Noah drew me a dinosaur. It looked like a potato, but still." Damien smiled. The alliance with Cray, born of desperation, had turned into a strange, grudging friendship. Damien walked out to the garden. The sun was setting, casting long, golden shadows across the lawn. Ivana was kneeling in the grass, planting hydrangeas, while Noah and Ethan dug holes nearby, burying their toy cars. Damien loosened his tie and crouched next to Ethan. "What are we building, buddy?" "Bunker," Ethan said seriously. "For the worms." "Smart." Damien stood up and reached a hand out to Ivana. She took it, and he pulled her up. She smelled of soil and vanilla, the best scent in the world. "You look tired," she said, brushing dust off his lapel. "Just thinking," Damien said, "about us." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Ivana's breath hitched. "Damien, I didn't buy a ring this time," he said, opening the box. Inside lay a heavy, old-fashioned iron key. "This is the master key to the estate. It opens the gates, the safe, everything. I had the lawyers transfer the deed to your name this morning. Everything I have. It's yours, legally." "I don't want your house, Damien," she whispered. "I know. That's why I'm giving it to you. I don't want a contract, Bella. I want a promise. I want you to know that you can leave any time. but I'm praying you'll stay." Ivana looked at the key, then at the vulnerability in the eyes of the city's most dangerous man. "I'm not going anywhere," she said softly, curling her fingers around the key. "Unless you plan on running into traffic again." "I'd run into traffic every day if it led me back to you." Ivana laughed and threw her arms around his neck. Damien held her tight, lifting her off the ground. "Daddy! Daddy!" Noah yelled, running over. "Pick me up too." Damien laughed a genuine light sound. He scooped up both boys, one in each arm, as they squealed with delight. "Can we have ice cream?" Noah asked. "One scoop," Damien agreed, winking at Ivana. As they walked back towards the house, Damien paused to look back at the gate. The guards were still there. The world outside was still dangerous. But as he walked into the kitchen listening to his sons argue about flavors, Damien Moretti knew he hadn't lost anything. He had won the only war that mattered. The mafia boss closed the door, locking the world out, content to just be dad. And that is how the King of Chicago fell, only to rise again as something much stronger. Damien Moretti learned the hard way that power isn't about who you control, it's about who you protect. He lost an empire of crime to build a kingdom of love. And let's be honest, seeing Sophia Sterling get exactly what she deserved was the icing on the cake. What do you think? Did Damien deserve a second chance after 3 years? And would you have forgiven him if you were Ivana? I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below, especially about that unexpected alliance with Victor Kray. If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss out on the next dramatic saga. I've got a story coming up next week about a billionaire bodyguard that you won't want to miss. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next story.